actually from New York, visiting here with a friend of mine. I'm a filmmaker, and we came across Startup Run just because we were really interested in meeting a lot of the Cape Town entrepreneurs.
Hi, my name is Liana, and I'm from Phoenix. Phoenix is a crowdfunding platform for students, and we're here tonight to meet more people, see what's going on in the crowdfunding space, and learn from each other.
Hi, my name is Langalisha Ndolo. I am the head brewer at Jupiter Brewing Company. So essentially we're here to source a second round of funding for our microbrewery. We are 3 years old, and we pretty much hit a tipping point where we need to start growing a bit bigger than what we are now. And so this is why we're here, to get that second round of investments to push us to the next level from a small microbrewery to a medium-sized microbrewery.
Now, I would like to introduce our guest for tonight. This is one of the most interesting people I've met, actually. He's the founder of BackaBuddy, Thundafund, and now Uprise.Africa. He knows crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding inside out. He's done so many incredible things, and is like sitting with him. He's got a ton of knowledge. And without further ado, I'd encourage all of you to get up on your feet. Let's give a big round of applause to Patrick Schofield. Welcome to South Carolina.
Thanks very much.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. It's really great to have you here. And I know that when it rains just a little bit, the Cape Townians just there's a storm outside, we're not going anywhere. But but the people are here. So well done. Thank you to you for making the people come. And thank you everybody for coming through.
I think we were also lucky because the rain started after you got here.
Oh, that's why you're trapped here. Great. So Patrick, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've got an interesting background. Let's start from the beginning. Where you born and what kind of kid were you?
Sure. Yeah, I can answer that by saying, I was in Cape Town. My wife was in Joburg, and she was 3 months pregnant, and we were convinced it was a girl because I really wanted to have a girl. And she phoned me from Joburg. She's like, Patrick, great. She's like, I said, you went for the what's it called, mammogram, or whatever. Like, yes. Yeah. I said, and? No. The scan,
the mammogram. We don't want the mammogram.
You can tell me where my mind goes.
You can do that one with your hands.
Oh, yeah. Is that what you told your wife? No, and she said, Patrick, guess what? I was like, oh, tell me. She's like, it's a boy. And I just went, oh, crap. I didn't realize I was on speakerphone with the whole family. But the reason is, as I was a child, I was arrested when I was 9 years old because I was really, really naughty. And so when I wasn't charged. Don't worry, it was a misunderstanding.
Okay, continue. I'll ask about that because I want to know: is that when you and your brother ended up in prison? And then
that's
Michael
not, no, Michael's not related.
Okay.
Prison Break.
Prison Break. That's what you do, your brother.
I look similar.
See. Okay. Great.
No, so I was born in Zimbabwe in what is called the Lady Chancellor Hospital, now called the Pariyanath Hospital. My father was from India. My mother was from the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
So sometimes when people say, where are you from? I'm like, well, I'm kind of from the world.
Yeah.
And it's as we are these days. And my grandmother was actually married 6 times. And 5 of her husbands died on her. She moved continents. But it was interesting. She was an extraordinary woman.
Oh, brilliant.
So really, it's my kind of window into the world was very much global.
Yeah.
But South Africa is very much my home now.
Yeah, fantastic, great. And so your primary school, did you do that in Zimbabwe or here in
Zimbabwe was, so I went to primary school in Zimbabwe, and it was a co-ed junior school. Absolutely loved it. And then my father was like, Patrick, you know, not sure what's happening in Zimbabwe, you've got to go to a good school.
Yeah.
So he sent me down to South Africa to what was basically a very beautiful prison.
Of course.
Yeah, it was in the mountains. If anyone's seen the movie Spud, that was the school I was at. I did not get stuck in any windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from the age of 12, I've very much been in South Africa.
Oh, brilliant. Michael House is a very good school.
It's fantastic, and actually it laid the groundwork. And from when I left there, I've been involved in what would be called social enterprise, which is you can do really good stuff in the world that can also make business sense most of the time. And that was really thanks to a guy called Robin Cox, who was he was my history teacher, and in the time was very much apartheid at that stage, and he would say, okay, you've heard about the 1976 riots and so forth, and he said, well, look, here's the official version. Here's the version produced by the ANC, and that's her cohort, and this is the international version. I'm not saying which is correct. Let's look at it. And he kind of told me it's not about what you're born with, it's what you do with it. And I was born with more like a golden spoon in my mouth, and silver. And I came out of there and I was like, actually, no, I think we can do some really interesting stuff in the world.
I see, and you survived my house because I know that place is very cold. My kids went to Trevorton, and one of my sons is taking a shower, and he burned himself. He didn't notice that because it's just so cold. After I was like, oh, what is this? Like, oh, I think I got burnt. If you survive there, meaning you could survive pretty much anywhere, right? Is that how?
My class, it was cold. That's true. And if, coming from Zimbabwe, and I was used to heat, and thunder showers. And suddenly it's like -5 degrees, and the school would start at 6:30 in the morning, which is I don't know why they do that to people.
Brilliant. And then there's something about like networking and the type of people you meet in school. Did you continue being in touch with some of those people from there?
You know what was interesting there is by the time I left my class, I kind of put my head down and worked for like 5 years and did some good stuff. But it was I really wanted to just get away from this very prestigious, kind of closeted environment. And so for the next like 10 years, I really stepped away from it. But from the age of about 30, which was a couple of years ago. And I started to re-engage with a lot of the people that I'd been to my class with, and it was really actually when you walk into a room and someone says, "I'm from a school that you know," you're like, "Oh, fantastic! Okay, great! I meet you, I see you," and you kind of know that you have a common understanding in terms of where you come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember the rector, the headmaster there, used to stand in front of me and say, "You boys are the future leaders of South Africa." And I used to go, "Oh, rubbish." But it's true. You look at so many people who come from those private schools, and it gives you a huge advantage. I don't know if you've seen that video. They got everyone standing in a line when you say, "Do you think we should all be treated equally now in terms of BE and so forth?" And they say, "Right, those people who went to private school step forward, and then those people who went to university step forward." And then there's this guy standing at the back, and they're like, "Okay, so do you think it's fair now? Now you're going to try and catch up with those people in front of you."
That's a powerful video, actually.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to watch it. We'll post it on the Startup Grind Facebook page, because it shows. Then we have people starting from different positions. Then you say, "Now let's run." Like other people already 50 meters away. Others like so. That I guess gives you perspective and also gratitude. Say that I've got something good. And was that what drove you to do the type of work you do, or maybe let's go to university? You went to UCT. Right?
Yeah, I actually went to university. My father convinced me that I should be a Rhodes Scholar. That was my future in life. I must be a Rhodes Scholar because that was the pinnacle of things. But I got to university. Up till when I left school, I was on track, and then I discovered Jamison Steps at UCT. For the first 2 years, I think I hardly left there. Yeah, it was I became a bit of a feature, but you know, like most things, they pass. I went through what I called my chiffon shirt stage. Where my girlfriend at the time made me my own chiffon shirts because you couldn't buy them.
For the younger people, you need to Google chiffon. It starts with a C. Cool. Okay. And you were like an A student, pretty much.
Look, I did
in everything.
I did well at school and university. Look, admittedly, when I was at university, at school, university, because stuff came easy. Well, I did work a lot of work, but I was quite arrogant.
Yeah.
And then in third year university, I got this like little lump in my throat. I was like, what was that? And then within a week, it was like a tennis ball. So I went up to my doctor. I was like, this is a weird thing here. It was cancer. And it was a particularly nasty kind of one. And they said, well, you've got good news and bad news. It's very aggressive, so if the treatment doesn't work, you'll be dead in 3 months. The good news is that if you survive the first 3 years, then you've got a good chance of getting through. And so I spent a year in a hospital in isolation, just seeing people in gowns the whole time. I had what's called a bone marrow transplant. I had 11% chance of survival.
Oh my gosh.
But in my mind, you're like, well, of course I'm going to live. That was the arrogance. Afterwards, I was like, when they sent in the priest, I knew I was in trouble. Literally, the priest arrived, and I was like, it's not good. Not good.
You're thinking, is this the last sacrament?
Hey, you know how people are stubborn?
Yeah.
I was that stubborn that I didn't believe I was going to die until the priest walked in, and I was like, don't you mean next door? No,
yeah. Probably because of that stubbornness, like you were seeing, like, look, I've got things to do, maybe that helped, maybe. But stubbornness, like, well, the people who don't like what you're doing call it stubbornness, and the people who admire it call it determination. You know, it's the same thing.
Like it is true, but sometimes you need to temper it a bit. Okay. And I must say, I came out there, and before I went in, I could read something and I could put it aside and I could remember it.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite photographic, but it was very easy. I came out and my mind was gone. I couldn't think anymore. And that humbled me. Yeah. It really did. I was like, wow, okay, so this is life. And I just didn't know whether I'd ever get better. And some people might say I didn't. But it was a good journey to go through. Like sometimes people say you get given a life which you can handle. Yeah. And I managed to get through. But it changed me a lot.
Wow. I can't imagine, because like you said, you could learn mathematics, and during exams you're trying to figure out like, which way am I going to prove this one? Like, you got so many ways of doing it, and you could just do it. Yeah. And then where people know you as the sharpest kid, the brightest, and then you get to this moment where you're struggling to read, understand.
No, I actually watched a TED talk the other day on this lady. It's one of the 10 most watched. It's a blonde lady. I forget what her name. And she had a similar, where she was in a car accident, and she said it's really difficult when you define yourself in a certain way. That is your sort of your character in life, and suddenly you come and you're no longer that. Yeah. And no longer being at the top of what you do and all the rest was really it was a shock. Yeah. And but as I said, it's some things you need to go through to actually to become maybe something better than what you were.
Wow. And so from varsity now, what was your first venture? What was your first?
Sure. My father had paid for me to go through private school and stuff, and then university, and what did I do? I wanted to get involved in what would now be called social enterprise, but that stage was I started a little publishing company that did community magazines and made no money. It did make money over time, but that's pre-internet. It's like the idea was you're a plumber, you're an electrician, you're a financial advisor, and you're a lawyer. You all live in the same neighborhood, but you wouldn't know because there's no way to actually to communicate in that way. So I said, if people knew what you did in the local area, then you could use each other, and you grow your local community. So it all sounded great. What did it convert to? Patrick Schofield honor student, graduated cum laude, walk into a fish and chip shop, trying to sell a 25 advert to a guy who owns a fish and chip shop, and being kicked out because he thought my idea was crap. So it was, so your dream and so forth, and can be right up there, but it's nuts and bolts that you're really going to get down to. And so that was the first thing I started, and then quite soon after that, and that's still going actually. It's now run by a 75-year-old guy who used to have 21 newspapers in the UK, and he now runs this community magazine group.
Oh wow! Brilliant. Excellent. Has it turned from being a not-for-profit by accident? Now is it profitable?
It's a social enterprise, so it's profitable.
Okay, great.
And that was the objective. It's like you can do good stuff.
Yeah.
But it should also make sense in the world.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
And then I actually, just to my father's chagrin, I then started something called Streetwires. Which was, through that kind of apartheid era, there's a lot of people who didn't get a good education because they were involved in the struggle space there.
Yeah.
And coming from Zimbabwe, I'd seen how powerful craft was in building a whole industry of people. You didn't have to have a formal education, but if you're good with your hands, you can do awesome stuff. So you bring the value of historical cultures, African cultures and various different ones, whether it's of course in Ndebele, Lesotho, and you link that through to professional retail skills and sales skills, and we created something called Streetwires. And that was, we did an audit a couple of years ago, and more than 50% of all wire and bead arts on the streets in South Africa had been designed in the Streetwire studios.
Oh wow!
So you've seen like these big sheep. Yeah, that was designed by us. These Nguni cows.
Yeah.
If you go through Joburg International Airport, there's a life-size elephant. That's Streetwires. If you see out of Africa, there's a Mandela standing there saying goodbye, shake his hand. That's Streetwires. So that was, and my dad at that stage just was like, "You guys are a lost cause." So I was again, it's about changing the world. It's about doing stuff. He's like, "You're teaching people to make things out of wire and beads. What about proper job?" But it turned into a successful business. And that's been going now about 17, 18 years.
Wow.
And still has a studio with about 50 people working in the studio now. And but the model there we built is if you want to change an industry, you don't try and contain it.
Yeah.
And you spoke about some of the things about scalability and so forth. And what the model we built there was, we work with people in groups within the studio. They will get better and better, and they will leave to go and set up their own studio, and then we buy from them.
Wow.
So Streetwires is a hub with a whole connected group of artists.
Yeah.
And you walk in, just try it. You're asked to go to what's that place in Kalk Bay? Olympia Cafe.
Yeah.
Speak to the guys outside there. Where did you train? Streetwires.
Wow.
You go to Joburg. Where did you guys train? Streetwires.
Wow.
So it was it was an amazing thing to be a part of. And think about it. You think of the skill of wire and bead. If you think about drawing on a piece of paper, if you try and draw a face, how many people can draw a reasonable face? Now, think of doing that in 3D. So you take a piece of wire, and you now create something freehand in 3D, with no sketch pad or whatever, and then you paint it with beads. It's a hell of a complex thing to do, and that's when you see the skill of those guys and the ladies. It's phenomenal. So it's a real privilege to be able to work with some of those artists, and see them grow from there.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. And with all these the different ventures you had, they're still running. What do you think is different? Because there are a lot of people who start so many things, but none of them could get anywhere. Like for you, what do you think is different that what you created continue to run?
Well, can I tell you about the ones that didn't work?
Yes, maybe. You give us a perspective.
No, you know what, when you say, and this is, I still have trouble learning the lessons as it is now. And some of the people I work with now might go, Where's Ingrid and Boyisa?
They're at the back.
But underpinning, and as it comes through again and again, a strong financial underpinning is absolutely critical. And just keeping, with Uprise, which is, we'll maybe talk about just now, with the equity crowdfunding platform, one of the things we do is we insist that there's a very strong financial due diligence and legal due diligence. But why crowdfunding was very exciting was because it started to answer a whole bunch of questions and lessons that I'd had to learn. And one of them is that if you can keep good financial controls and underpinning what you do, yes, it's half the game won already. And another person I worked with said, you see again and again, so many businesses fail 2 to 3 years in, not because it wasn't a great idea and you didn't have passion, but it's because you lost control of the numbers. And it's a lesson you'll learn again and again, but that is one of the most critical things. And the other is, and this is something I was chatting to Eckhart about just now, was your legal structure. If you get it wrong early on, especially if you think you're going to grow your business to a significant scale, crumbs. Just spend that time getting good advice as to how you actually want to set up your shareholding structure and your capital going forward. And with those two things, get those two things right. If you run a good financial ship, amazingly you'll run a whole bunch of other stuff well. And from a legal perspective, and actually our legal partners, Thomas here, where is Daniel from Thomas here is here as well. He'll be nodding his head. That laugh, exactly. A year on, he's like, Patrick, you should have said that a year ago. But yeah, it's the legal structure is critical.
I think that's a very good point, especially in the financials, because a lot of times what I've found in my work working with entrepreneurs, like when they can't figure out the financial model, they just say, it's a social enterprise. Like, no, you can figure out how to make it sustainable. So social enterprise is not like an accounting where you just say, put it in suspense, like figure out where you should go, miscellaneous. So a lot of people try to do that you don't take time to think through the numbers or get hold of the numbers to maintain the social enterprise.
Yeah. Because the numbers, if you're looking them with a clear head, they're in line. You can think you're doing amazing stuff, but at the end of the month, I remember standing in the bank when I was with 3 months into Billboard. Sorry. And it was month end, and the person behind me was like, "Oh, it's so cool, month end, you get paid, it's awesome." I just looked at them, I was like, "Sure, unless you're paying." Yeah. And then that's the other side. Yeah. So that is, it's the exciting thing of being about entrepreneurs. You can build these big things, but the other side is that you've got to pay the bills.
Yeah, brilliant. Tell us about Uprise and equity crowdfunding.
Uprise is kind of, it's a journey of let's say of 15 years, and the team that I've worked with to actually build Uprise, each of us have traveled our journey. But it was, I started chatting to a guy called Michael Norton, who was part of the group who set up Unlimited, they had about £100 million fund to achieve the Millennium Goals. And he started speaking to me about what was initially community banking, the idea that people come together, and together you can actually build enterprises or make stuff happen by combining your resources. And it's only been viable with the birth of the internet, because it means you can speak to a much wider group of people at a much reduced cost, and that's a critical part. And crowdfunding started to shine some really awesome lights onto what I'd experienced in the entrepreneurial world. Yeah. One was, everyone thinks it's about money. But you go to a bank and you manage to convince them to give you a loan of $1 million to start your business. What have you got? You've got debt, and you've got nothing else. Debt. If you raise $1 million through crowdfunding, what have you got? You've got a bunch of customers who are actually interested in your business. Either, if it's rewards-based crowdfunding through something like Thundafund, you've got people who are buying your product. Or you've got a bunch of shareholders who generally, when you're raising something like $1 million, they're not people who are disconnected to what you're doing. They're people in your network, people who believe in what you're doing, people who have seen you out there, and will actually help you get on the road. So, difference, $1 million of debt, or $1 million where you now have a bunch of people who are saying, we're behind you and want to see it happen.
Yeah.
And that's, when I said what's the most important thing when you open a business, it's not raising the cash, it's your customers. So if you can combine that, I looked at this and I was like, sure, this is actually fantastic.
Wow.
And the other side of it is, so that's the carrot, let's say. And the stick is, you know, and I've said it many times, when you go to church, or when you go to synagogue or the mosque, you can pray at home anytime. But when you walk through that door and 100 pairs of eyes look at you and say, Sandros, wonderful, lovely to see you here. Like, you're one of us. In the same way, you know, when you started your company and it's growing, or you started your new brewery, come Friday night you're thinking, let's go and have a party. You're like, hang on, wait, if I go out to have a drink now and I get drunk and so forth, I've got 20 friends who invested in me and I haven't got it going yet. Okay, I'm going to go home. It focuses the mind and it helps the entrepreneur actually get out there and make sure what they're doing is in the best interest of the whole community that they work with.
And what are the steps of, if somebody now thinking that I've heard about crowdfunding and somehow I thought I could just put my ideas up and tell people to back me, and then a few people have tried it and realized nothing is happening. Like, what are the steps that would make it happen? Like, maybe you could take us through some of the ones that you've done, the ones that you're super excited about.
Yeah. You know,
Just on the crowdfunding aspect and then on the equity crowdfunding.
Look, what I would say is if you're hearing, what is it? Is it 1 out of 10 businesses? Well, they say it's about 3 out of 10 businesses survive the first 3 years in South Africa. So less than 30% of businesses survive in South Africa, new businesses. No one starts a business thinking it's going to fail.
Exactly.
So everyone, those 10 people, all of you think you've got a great idea and the business is going to happen. Out of those in this row over here, no. Yes. Yay, you 3. Correct, you're doing it. Wait, no, 4. Okay. Cool idea. In Australia, one of the earliest equity crowdfunding platforms called the Small Stock Offerings Board. After almost 8 years of operation, 67% of all businesses that had successfully crowdfunded on that platform were still operating.
Wow.
Now it's the polar opposite of what we're doing. And the question is why? And one of the primary things is, and you know, drifters who you're enjoying their beer at the back there, that they actually at the end we're going to show a little 1-minute video because they're going to be raising cash on Uprise. And I'd say if you want to know how to do it, speak to them because they're doing a good job of it. But they would know. It's not a matter of just saying, hey, I want to launch this, which is what a lot of us do. It's like you say, okay, great, I've got $1 million in the bank because I've saved up. It's a good business, I'm going to make it happen. It's a process where you've got to go through a legal due diligence, you've got to go through a financial due diligence. So by the time that the campaign goes live, it's actually, you know, so people have kicked the tires. And then the other side of it is it's not just your friend and you know, their friend and one or two others say, yeah, it's a great idea. It's a very big difference. And you'll know whether it's a rewards-based campaign where you're opening a little coffee shop or whether you're doing a brewery or launching a new publishing company. It's a very different thing when people say, fantastic, well done, great, yes, we'll get behind you, absolutely. I'm going to buy those 20 t-shirts, I'll get your beers. To actually, no, cash. Where's your cash? And suddenly, those 10 friends go. And there's one guy going, okay, well, here's my 1,000 rand. And it means that you sort the wheat from the chaff. So the really good businesses led by good people come through, and the ones that don't, well, they say, well, look, I could have wasted 3 years of my life plus a whole bunch of cash and it didn't work, or I've gone through that campaign process and wow, people love my idea, or they don't, and I'll step away and do something else.
I see. And does it only work for companies or businesses where you can give out something? And that's one of the questions that came through on Facebook. Someone says, do you, for instance, like if you're making a beer, gin, you can give out bottles. And what about other businesses that do not create products like that? How does it work?
What? I sometimes compare it to, so in rewards-based crowdfunding, where you give a product in return. So, like, I've used it many times, but if you think there's a phone, if you want to, I'll show this one in case my wife's messages pop up. You've got a phone. By the way, this is a really cool thing to keep your credit cards in the back. You can run one crowdfunding campaign to say we're making a phone, but there's 1,000 different components or 100 different companies that go into making this. With an equity campaign, that's where you can say we're going to open a business that's going to make widgets that go into this thing. We've got our financials, we've got a couple of anchor investors, and we need to raise $10 million. You can run 100 different campaigns on that. You don't have to be offering a final product. It can be a component or anything along those lines. And it's why equity crowdfunding is very exciting, is that rewards works at concept stage, where you're saying, we're going to sell my first set of apple juice. Yep. Now you want to actually go and build the brewery. You need to go from a rewards campaign of 500,000 to a brewery of 10 million. And at that stage, people don't just want product, they actually want to say, okay, well, I'd like to be part of this journey. Yeah. I'd like to think that I've actually said, I saw this opportunity, it could be the next Facebook, for all I know, and I can get in at the ground while it's still building.
Great.
But actually, anyone here in the insurance industry? Yeah. Okay, there's a few, but they're kind of doing this. I was actually chatting to Anton at a VC the other day called 40i, and I was chatting to him about one of the sister platforms to Uprise, which is BackaBuddy, which is a donations platform. You might have seen that guy in Durban had his legs almost chopped off in Glengie. He saw he raised 700,000 rand. And that was from people who all went on to BackaBuddy and they said, you know what, I don't know you, but I can relate to this awful experience you've been through. Yeah. So we saw one donation for 10 rand. A young girl who just obviously said, I don't have anything more to give, but just she put in 10 rand. And that's to say, I hope I'm going to with you on this journey. But this guy, Anton from 40i, he looked at me and I was talking through how amazing BackaBuddy was and what it was doing and so forth. And he said, so it's basically an insurance agency. I was like, what? He was so right. He said, you know what? If you have lived a good life and you treated the people around you well, and you have worked with them, you've been honest in business in the way you work, when you want to go and set up your brewery, who are the people who support you? They're the people in the network that you built up. And that is if you built up a good insurance policy by living well and treating the people around you well, when time comes that you need their support, they go, you're a good guy, I'm behind you with this, there it is. And I looked and I was like, sure, well, actually, hang on, I was going to speak to Hard for investment. but it was really, so whether it's equity crowdfunding, the same thing. The people who will succeed in life are those who actually built up a network of people who respect them for what they do and like them. Dudazami Zuma is known as. What did he say? Why do the groups do business with you? Because I'm a nice kind of guy. So maybe that's a bit too far, but you know what I mean. It's amazing how often because everyone has tough times in your businesses. But when you treat the people around you well, it's amazing. Times get tough, they step up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like even when you're having problems, even with your employees, when you're a good guy and you explain, they understand and trust you.
Yeah.
Even doctors who are considered good doctors get with less compared to the ones that are really just mean. So it's true. Like being a good person actually pays off, and entrepreneurs who are good people get a lot of help and people pointing in the right direction.
No, absolutely, and that's very much the kind of basis of crowdfunding is the idea that the social vetting, the social capital that you build, and it's not unique to what we do. If you're Airbnb, what are you vetted on? It's basically how good were you as a host, and it's one of the things I love about Uber is that it's not a one-way. I'm gonna vet you as a taxi driver. There you are. No. They, if you've been a schmuck and you've abused them, then they're like, poosh, and
1.
yeah,
They're looking for 0. Where did they put 0 on this one? Cool. We're going to take questions from the audience. There's a question there already. Great, Shante.
I want to ask about you've done your crowdfunding, you've raised from, let's say, 1,000 individuals, and you're going to go ahead with your strategy to grow your business, and now all of a sudden you've got to manage these 1,000 shareholders. Can you just talk us through how that works in a crowdfunding environment?
No, and yeah, absolutely. And you know, can you imagine you're a small business of like 5 people, and suddenly you've got 1,000 shareholders. How crowdfunding works, and it runs that fine line between you being accountable to your shareholders, but also being able to get on and run your business. And how it's structured is each person within the crowd, none of them have a direct right as to tell you how to run your business, but they all form part of a crowd of people, and they have a representative. Who speaks to the representative who is on the board for Uprise, representing Uprise in that deal. So, for example, like with Drifters, there will be a board representative from Uprise, and anyone within the crowd can voice their concerns or their questions or give their ideas to that representative who then speaks to the board itself. And it's a way of saying, look, you're part of the journey, we want to get you involved, but we also want to make sure that the entrepreneurs can get on and run their business, and without having to worry about all these individuals. It's the other thing why crowdfunding, so 6 years ago, equity crowdfunding did not exist in the UK. 6 years later, 21% of the total market, that's 1/5 of the total VC market, is raised through crowdfunding. Why? That's in the UK. And there's a couple of reasons. One, when you have one investor, they demand all sorts of minority share, minority rights, and they basically, they kind of tell you what to do and how to do it, a lot of the time. When you have and do an equity crowdfunding raise, there's no one individual person or one investor who can tell you what to do. There are a group of investors who have come together, and they, as I said, they're represented by an Uprise board member, but nothing more than that. So it's a very slightly more hands-off. One of the questions you might raise then is, but hang on, what about then direction and so forth? Because that's how the VCs keep the ship going in the right direction, is they have control. Again, going back to that 100 people in a church, entrepreneurs and people are focused when they know there's a community of people who are watching them, and they're customers, yes, but they're also people saying, hang on, look, actually, what's happening here? You said you're going in this direction. If you've changed, you need to tell us. And we all know, in that space, people can be very vocal. So it is. It's that line. It's that dance we weave between accountability, but also allowing people to get on and run their business.
I want to know, what is the return on investment for the actual investors?
Okay, it's very much dependent per campaign. So, for example, right now there's a campaign, our first campaign, and very much our pilot campaign for Storied, which is a publishing company coming out of Jacana Publishing. Jacana just published that book on the Guptas. Did you see that today? I was like, oh, this looks like fun. How Zuma got involved in founding the ANN7. That's very much an impact investment. So that is really, it's people investing that not because they're looking for a 2, 3, 5, 10, 10x return. They're just saying this is a company that I want to be involved in. Storied is all about the decolonization of literature in Africa. So they're looking to publish local literature. Then you get something like Drifters, and we can actually ask them, guys, what's your IRR? Huh? So we'll see the video just now. So you get the full scope from, this is a straight on business, through to these are potential unicorns, through to this is an impact investment of stuff that needs to happen in the world.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
So I just wanted to ask on the Uprise platform itself, as an investor or a share buyer, how quickly can one get in and out of a trade to buy into something like drifters? And how much liquidity in the market do you see? What is going to be the driving force to raise a stock price or dive the stock price? And that's really what I want to know is like, what kind of market are we talking about here? If I go and buy 100 shares of drifters and then, you know, in 6 months from now you tell me that's worth half of what is going to actually bring that value?
Yeah, okay, it's a very good question, and Daniel was looking at me squint over the side from Dynasty Attorneys. It's something that when you buy a shareholding into a company which has been raised funds through an equity crowdfunding platform like Uprise, in South Africa presently, because it's through a public entity, and it took us about a year to actually get the right structure in place, back and forth to the Financial Services Board to actually create a structure that now fits within the existing legal environment where you can publicly go out and raise capital for what are in essence private companies. We do it through a public entity which invests into the various different private companies. So it's not a complex structure, but it's a neat structure, let's say. But the result coming out the other side is that your shares are relatively illiquid. If you think you're on the JSE, that's open markets there. But presently now, if you want to sell your shares, you can sell your shares, but you need to fit within the existing Companies Act, which means you need to provide the prospectus which the shares were bought and any information that has changed that has a material impact on that company. Now, we are speaking with a potential partner who has an existing what's called OTC platform, the over-the-counter trading platform, where you can and you will be able to post your shares if you would like to sell them, and people can get in contact with you if they'd like to buy them. And the way that platform's set up is you can see previous trades as they've happened, so you get an indication of pricing. But that is to come. What I would say at this stage now, if you're looking to buy shares on Uprise into something like Drifters, you look at it as saying, I want to invest in this company, and it's for the long term. So when they make an exit, or they do the next raise, or there's a liquidity event like dividends and that kind of thing, I will get my return on that. Within 6 months, we expect to have the functionality to allow you to more easily trade your shares. But at this stage now, I would say, look at it in terms of saying, I'm in this because I believe this company is going to be awesome, and I expect to get dividend returns, not I'm going to sell my shares next month.
So the structure is dividends.
The structure. Each company would offer dividends as they become profitable. So, for example, something like Drifters is more likely to be offering dividends than someone like Story, which is much more an impact investment. They might say in 3 years' time, they might say, okay, we can start to give you a return on your capital.
Great, thanks.
Could I ask for clarity on that, please? If you're an early investor, you would expect an appropriate reward for your faith in the company and the concept for being an early investor. Would you then expect a finite number of shares to be issued? Or in the future, would there be A and B class shares?
Okay, so when you invest, you'll buy shares. You'll buy shares, and there will be Uprise, let's say Uprise Class A shares, Uprise Class A shares, Drifters. And so you're buying an investment into Drifters, and how Drifters perform will determine your return that you get. So let's say they're offering, they're looking to raise 3 million rand, and they're offering 10,000 shares. If you buy 5 of those shares, then you will pay X amount, and you will have an investment of 5 shares, which will be a percentage of the total shareholding in Drifters.
Cool, thank you.
Great.
While I'm going there, I actually have another question.
Yeah.
You mentioned unicorns. So with unicorns, they will go international. How do you cater for that?
Okay, what I would say is in here, don't we call them gazelles?
Yeah. In Africa, we got gazelles.
Yeah, we call gazelles. Don't worry. In Wakanda.
In Wakanda, yeah.
They're unicorns. For international investors, presently again, because it's a public share that you have, you can, as an international investor, you can buy shares in, for example, Drifters, but you have to have a South African bank account to do so. So it is restricted in that way. And the reason for that is each country has its own rules and regulations around public offerings. And in essence, you're making a public offering. So you would have to ensure that the platform locally fulfills the duties and obligations that the jurisdiction that that person is in is investing from.
But what if the unit or the company actually goes international?
Oh, there's no problem with that. If the company goes international and you invest in that, that's fantastic. There's you can take international expansion there's no restriction in terms of that structure. And what is nice is that what we're doing with equity crowdfunding and Uprise, it's not new. It's innovative for South Africa, but it's worked well in the UK. 1/5 of the total market in the UK and VC is equity crowdfunding. So we learned a lot of lessons from what they're doing. And look, I can say, what we thought we were doing from when we started to what we finally accomplished, it's been a journey in ourselves, because there was a whole bunch of stuff that we weren't fully cognizant of when we actually set out on the journey of Uprise.
Brilliant.
Hi, Patrick. Just a question around intellectual property. If you're an early stage company or inventor, how do you actually protect your IP when you go live or start with a crowdfunding campaign?
You know what? To answer that, I'll actually refer to who was I speaking to earlier who mentioned there's a guy called Jaco Kruger. Oh, it was one of the ladies who's part of Drifters. You heard of a guy called Jaco Kruger? Have you heard of something called Luma Loops? Okay, it's now called something else, but basically it's this Lego which you can like stick on the wall. You've seen it? It's flipping awesome. So you can stick on your fridge, so it turns your Lego set from 2D into 3D. And the reason I answer that is that they did a crowdfunding campaign, and they had patents pending. So they didn't even have the patents in place, patent pending for this Lego stuff. Within the campaign run, they raised 21 million rand. 21 million rand. And it went global. It was a fantastic campaign. The biggest campaign ever run by South Africa. And he ran one of the first campaigns on Thundafund. But when I spoke to Jaco, he's like 2 weeks in, he's like, you know what? It's taken 2 weeks, and already on Alibaba, this is Alibaba, isn't it? It's the China side. Yeah. There was already people selling from China, stick on Lego. But he said, Patrick, if I'd launched my Luma Loops and I'd had to fight as this little guy, I would never have been able to take on these guys in China. But instead, by running the crowdfunding campaign, he jumped right up there into 10 steps ahead of anybody else. And sure enough, he was then bought by one of the big toy companies, who was then able to defend their patent. So what I'm saying there is that absolutely make sure you have your IP protected, but an idea under the bed is worth nothing. And you might think you have a fantastic idea. And actually, I was chatting to a guy at Institute University, and he runs a course in entrepreneurship. He said in 10 years of lecturing, they do course in entrepreneurship. That's what he does. Not once had he come an idea that once you did a Google search, wasn't already in the world. So what I would say, it's about the execution rather than the brilliance of the idea. You can have a fantastic idea, but get out there and do it rather than wait.
Great. Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much, Patrick. A big hand to Patrick, please.
Maybe could I just say one more thing? And it's just what I've found with building companies is that as much as you might think you've got an amazing idea, it's the team of people that you build around you who actually are the ones who make it happen. If you build a strong team, the world's your oyster. If your team is not working well together, it becomes very, very difficult to work. And with the founding of Thundafund, we've got, as I said, Vuyisa's in the room here somewhere.
Yes.
And there he is at the backside. Vuyisa was built for crowdfunding. He's one of the co-founders in Thundafund. And then Inga is there as well. incredible on the marketing side, and I said become a COO. It's like you get the right people together into the space, and it becomes so much easier.
Absolutely, because the ideas keep changing anyway. Like a lot of successful companies have pivoted so many times. So the idea, when you start out thinking it's the best idea ever, and nobody buys it, and then you change. Great, thank you very much. We're gonna have the video.
So guys, this is, I've got to say, it's one of them, to me this is a nugget of how things should be done when you put together a video for crowdfunding.
What's better than drinking beer with your friends? How about owning the beer you're drinking? Hold on, let's back up a bit. Drifter Brewery was started in 2015 by Nick, and with the help of an awesome fleet of people. And a bit of crazy. They've grown over 300%. Tell us, Captain. Well, wait, I can do this better. To the beer montage! Our beginning's great future, you get the gist. Drifter is now served all over South Africa, with contracts in China, the UK, and the USA. They're not afraid to do things differently, like brew with seawater, their secret to saving our precious aqua. Or sink beers to mature on the ocean floor.
That's not a joke, we really see.
Anyway, blah, blah, you get the picture. This ship is set for global sail. Now back to the body. The vision of a community of beer, for beer lovers, belongs to everyone.
Which means we're giving you the chance to own a part of this momentous company.
That's right. Anyone can buy shares in Drifter Brewing Company. So raise a glass to a brewery where you can drink your beer and own it too. Drifter Beer, not only for pirates.
Perfect. That they just didn't get up in the morning and it's done. Right? There was some planning and good work. So excellent. Yeah. Cool. And any last words, advice to entrepreneurs? Ideal, wise words, parting words. You said a lot of wise things. So last ones.
I sometimes think one's own wise words and can make fools of oneself and other people. No, it's, it might be something that is said so often, but and it was our CEO and co-founder Thundafund and Kadir, who said, if you're passionate about what you do, you can get through anything. But if you're finding that you're getting up in the morning and you're not enjoying it, then you need to step away. So whatever it is, which is, you can be 2 years into startup and spend like a couple $1 million. If you're finding it's not like drawing you, then guys, change. And the world that we have today, it's very accessible to move into a different career. I started in publishing, I worked in craft, I moved into crowdfunding. These are very different spheres. And I'm only in my 40s.
Cool. We'll
So
catch
that-
up with you.
Yeah.
We'll catch up in your 40s then.
No, you'll never catch up. I'll always be older.
I'm working hard. Great. Thank you very much, Patrick. Another big round of applause.
So my name is Jabulo Kulu. I'm a founder and CEO of Toro Technologies. We're based in Stellenbosch. I think what's interesting about crowdfunding and what I realize is that maybe it's not ideal for the initiation phase of your business. It's more ideal in the growth phase where you need funding in order to reach an objective. Right now, where you're still building the business, I think it would be too hard to have 1,000 people chasing after it to see how far you are with the development of your business. So I think that was quite insightful to see today. And then also what I liked was that in order to attract investors in crowdfunding, you have to have a really good campaign. And yeah, so if you think about that, it's if you go into the dragon's den, at least get in there with the sword, So that's what I got about today. So it was quite interesting. Thanks.
I really enjoyed the session that you just had. But one thing I really want to take away in terms of funding, we live in the information age. So the crowdfunding, it's really a new frontier where right from the start, really, you can really determine how your idea works and how your business is going to perform, because you have real customers that are backing you up. So if nobody backs you up, that should be an indication, a red flag, that actually nobody wants your product. So what does that mean? Does it mean that you quit? No, quitting is not an option. You go back and you actually solve those problems and you optimize your product or service.